Bienvenue au Théâtre national de la presse.
Merci.
Je suis Boris Proulx, président de la tribune de la presse nationale du Canada. Aujourd'hui, c'est la conférence de presse de Pierre Poilievre, chef de l'opposition officielle et chef du Parti conservateur du Canada. After a few remarks, we'll go to the question period on a one question, one follow-up basis. On that, Leader, you have the floor.
Merci, monsieur, et merci de l'invitation. Vous m'entendez bien? Les conservateurs ont une mission de rendre la vie abordable chez nous, sécuritaire chez nous et autosuffisante chez nous. C'est en ce sens, j'étais heureux d'entendre aujourd'hui que le premier ministre voulait parler des résultats. Parce qu'après 1 an et demi de ce mandat du Parti libéral, de ce premier ministre libéral, j'ai une question pour les Canadiens par rapport aux résultats. Quels sont les résultats pour vous? Est-ce que votre vie est plus abordable? Est-ce qu'il y a moins de criminalité dans votre vie, dans les communautés où vous vivez? Est-ce que votre chèque de paie augmente plus rapidement que le coût de la vie? Pour la mère monoparentale, quels sont les résultats pour votre budget familial? Est-ce que vous payez moins cher pour l'épicerie, comme M. Carney a promis? Est-ce que c'est ça le résultat? Pour le jeune couple qui veut acheter une maison, est-ce que c'est moins cher d'en acheter une? Pour la famille, à Victoriaville, après 1 an et demi de M. Carney, est-ce que votre paiement hypothécaire est descendu ou est-ce que vous payez encore plus? La réalité, c'est après 1 an de M. Carney, 1 an et demi de M. Carney comme premier ministre libéral, le résultat, c'est plus de coûts, plus de dettes, plus de criminalité à travers le pays. Aujourd'hui, M. Carney est resté ici pendant 1 heure à répéter les mêmes promesses qu'il a fait depuis 1 an et demi, en les faisant passer pour des résultats. Répéter une promesse, ce n'est pas un résultat. Annonce, cérémonie de signature, séance photo, annonce recyclée, discours et même conférence de presse. J'avoue, ce n'est pas des résultats. Les libéraux de Mark Carney ont une formule. Faire une promesse, puis trouver une excuse pour ne pas le tenir, puis refaire la même promesse. Tout cela n'est qu'une illusion. Le bilan de M. Carney dans la vie des Canadiens, c'est plus de coûts, plus de dettes, plus de taxes, plus de criminalité. C'est du pareil au même. M. Carney est juste un autre libéral. En fait, M. Carney est encore pire. Tout va plus mal aujourd'hui dans la vie des Canadiens après 1 an et demi de M. Carney. On a maintenant la pire inflation alimentaire dans le G7. Les familles les plus endettées dans le G7. La seule récession du G7. La seule économie du G7 dont la taille est aujourd'hui inférieure à celle qu'il y a 1 an. En fait, les investissements des entreprises est tombé chacun des 5 trimestres que M. Carney est au pouvoir. L'économie s'est contractée pendant 3 des 4 derniers trimestres et 2 trimestres consécutifs, ce qui est, selon M. Carney, la définition d'une récession technique. Qu'il s'agisse d'une récession technique ou d'une récession réelle, celle de M. Carney est le seul dans le G7, la seule dans le G20, la seule en Amérique du Nord, le Mexique qui partage une frontière et la même entente de libre-échange avec les Américains n'est pas en récession. Si c'était vraiment les tarifs, les guerres et les prix de l'énergie, comment est-ce que les autres pays ont évité la récession que nous avons ici après 1 an de M. Carney? C'est parce que ce n'est pas les effets mondiaux, c'est des effets libéraux. M. Carney a continué avec les mêmes politiques libérales qu'il a avisées à Justin Trudeau pendant 10 ans. Parlant des dépenses, M. Carney a promis de dépenser moins Il a augmenté les dépenses de 5 %. Hors de COVID, le déficit est le plus grand dans notre histoire, et les dépenses par rapport au PIB est le plus élevé depuis 1996, il y a 30 ans. M. Carney a créé 12 nouvelles agences ou nouveaux bureaux. Il a un gouvernement qui est plus grand, qui est plus coûteux que celui qu'on a obtenu de Justin Trudeau. Toutes les lois anti-développement restent en place et le gouvernement fédéral, maintenant, bloque 500 projets. Il y a 500 projets qui attendent une approbation fédérale lorsque M. Carney garde en place un système qui les empêche d'aller de l'avant. M. Carney a annoncé qu'il va augmenter la taxe carbone industrielle 6 fois plus élevée que celle de Justin Trudeau. Donc, par rapport à la criminalité, il a adopté une loi qui permet des criminels, les pires criminels, trouvés coupables des abus sexuels, des agressions physiques, l'extorsion et j'en passe, d'éviter des peines mandatoires. En fait, ils rendent les lois encore plus faibles. La libération conditionnelle et la libération sous caution libérale sont toujours en place. Donc, rien n'est changé. Tout est le même. C'est ça le résultat de M. Carney sur la criminalité. Parlons de commerce international. Il n'a pas signé il n'a pas négocié une seule nouvelle entente de libre-échange avec des autres pays, pas un seul, ni obtenu des résultats par rapport aux États-Unis, un pays qui a doublé les tarifs sur notre acier et notre aluminium. Il est triplé sur notre bois depuis l'arrivée au pouvoir de M. Carney, quand il a promis d'avoir un bon deal le 21 juillet dernier. Donc, pas de résultat non plus. Pendant que M. Carney continue de faire des excuses et des promesses, les conservateurs travaillent pour des résultats pour les Canadiens. Nous nous battons pour éliminer totalement la taxe de l'essence pour toute l'année, afin d'économiser 25 sous le litre, 20 $ pour faire le plein, et 1 200 $ d'ici Noël. Nous avons introduit un projet de loi pour éliminer le TPS sur des voitures et camions usagés, pour lequel on va payer en éliminant les dépenses d'1 milliard de dollars par année pour le projet Alto, qui ne va jamais probablement être bâti de toute façon. On va redonner cet argent-là aux Canadiens pour acheter un auto. Nous travaillons aussi à faire avancer des bons projets de loi pour protéger les Canadiens. Le député Frank Caputo a fait adopter une loi protégeant les femmes contre les hommes violents. Et nous avons forcé le gouvernement d'au moins d'accepter notre recommandation de ne pas faire l'aide médicale à mourir pour les raisons de santé mentale seulement. Notre but, c'est de rétablir la promesse de notre pays où chacun qui travaille fort pour avoir une vie abordable, peut avoir un chèque de paie qui grandit, peut payer son hypothèque et peut prendre la retraite de façon paisible, sans crainte. C'est ça le but. Ce sont des résultats pour lesquels nous devrions tous travailler. En conclusion, c'est les résultats dans votre vie, pour votre coût de la vie, pour votre sécurité qui comptent. Il faut mesurer les résultats. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, everyone. Now in English. It's great to be here today to talk with you, first about the Conservative mission to make our country affordable at home, safe at home, and self-reliant here at home. But I was most happy to hear today that Prime Minister Carney wanted to talk about, quote, the results we've seen so far. Well, it's about time. After a year and a half of this Liberal Prime Minister, let me ask Canadians about the results you are seeing in your life. After a year and a half of this Liberal Prime Minister, are your groceries more affordable? Is your gas more affordable? Has your mortgage payment come down? Is there less crime in your streets? Is your paycheck rising faster than your cost of living? To the single mother or senior, when you go to the checkout and watch the total accumulate with that beep, 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 are you seeing savings from Mark Carney's promise to deliver affordable groceries? What about that couple in Mississauga? When you check your bank account, do you see the results with lower mortgage payments after a year and a half of Mark Carney? To the small business owners who are struggling to make payroll, are you finding that your input costs are more affordable or that your sales are up? And to those same small businesses in Surrey, Brampton, and Northeast Calgary, is the result of Mark Carney that you feel more safe or less from extortion? Today, Mr. Carney sat here for about an hour repeating the same promises he's been making and breaking for a year and a half. He passes off his promises as results. Announcements, signing ceremonies, photo ops, re-announcements, speeches, and even press conferences all have one thing in common. They're just promises of things that he says he will one day do if we just wait long enough. See, the Carney Liberals have a formula. Make a promise, then make an excuse for breaking it, then make the same promise again. It's all an illusion. The result of Mark Carney in the lives of ordinary Canadians is more cost, more debt, more recession, more crime, more of the same. He's just another Liberal. In fact, it's worse than that. Everything is worse in people's lives than when he took office. We have the worst food price inflation in the G7, the worst household debt in the G7, and the only economy in the G7 that has shrunk in 2 consecutive quarters, the definition of a recession. The only G7 economy that is smaller today than it was a year ago. The only economy for which business investment has gone down 5 consecutive quarters in a row. In fact, business investment is down every single quarter since Mark Carney became Prime Minister. The economy has shrunk, as I said a moment ago, 2 quarters in a row. Mark Carney has said that is the technical definition of a recession. So I will take him at his word. But whether it's technical or not, it's definitely the only one. Why is it that no other G7 country, no other G20 country, no other North American country has seen its economy shrink in 2 consecutive quarters? They all have the same tariffs, energy price problems, and wars overseas, and yet their economies are not shrinking back to back. And whether you agree that it is a technical recession or a real one, what is real is the strain and the hunger that Canadians are feeling. That's the result they're living today. They feel this strain in their hungry stomachs. They feel the results in their empty bank accounts. They feel that the anxiety every time they open their fridge. The United Way reported this month that 60% of Canadians feel personal anxiety about their finances. That's Mark Carney's results. Carney's results are 38% of Canadians live in food insecurity. 1 in 5 reporting that there were times last year when they ran out of food at the same time they ran out of money. So where do they go next? To the food bank? Well, the same survey found that 1 in 5 food banks ran out in the last year as well. A third know someone who's experienced poverty, up 5% in just 6 months, and a fifth of Canadians said that they have personally experienced poverty. Dazzling overseas speeches and fake agreements won't put food on tables, money in bank accounts, or gas in tanks, nor will the Prime Minister's $200,000 of in-flight catering. And why are these results so bad? In the last election, Mark Carney promised that he would reverse everything that he had said and his party had done in the prior decade, but it was all an illusion. It's been more costs, more crime, more corruption, more of the same. Mark Carney is just another Liberal. He changed the branding, talking points, and image, but continued and accelerated the Liberal policies that he had advised Justin Trudeau to implement, and he's kept most of the same Trudeau-era ministers in place to implement them. What are those policies? After a year after promising to control spending, the result is that the deficit has doubled. Outside of COVID, the $80 billion deficit is the biggest in our history, and spending is at its highest level as a share of GDP since 1996. He increased spending 5.1% in just over a year, added 13 new and costly government agencies, kept all the anti-development Liberal laws in place, and then he increased the industrial carbon tax 6 times higher than the one Trudeau left behind. Just because you use conservative words does not mean you're doing conservative deeds. But not everyone's suffering. There have been some results for some people. The Liberal club of power brokers, lobbyists, and insiders are getting richer than ever, making everyone else poor. The Carney condo bailout is just the latest example. And why is he bailing out these condo developers who've made billions over the last several decades? Well, and I quote, "The developers don't want to sell at a loss." Who does? But somebody's going to lose money, right? The government inflated the housing market into a bubble, and now the bubble burst. So who's going to pay the price? Mark Carney wants you, the welder, the waitress, the barber, the small business person, to pay through your taxes to bail out his developer friends. You, the people who acted responsibly, you, the ones who've been suffering with high prices, you're the ones that the Carney Liberals want to pay this price. Ironically, it's the opposite of what he says. He says that this is a policy to make housing affordable. How does bidding up the cost of condos and competing with home buyers to buy them make it more affordable? It's exactly the opposite. He's making home ownership even more difficult by forcing taxpayers to pay through their taxes to bid against themselves when they try to buy a home. It came out this week, and it's not just the condo bailout. It came out this week that 18 executives now exist at the Phantom Alto Rail Project. This is a rail project that will not probably be built for decades, but somehow they already have 18 executives, and they've given out $2.8 million of bonuses. For what? There's no route, there's no start date, there's no private investment, there's no building company, and somehow Mr. Carney believes that these executives have performed well enough to get $2.8 million of taxpayers' money in the form of bonuses. Mr. Carney is building an economy of carve-outs, bailouts, and handouts for the club, and higher costs, debt, and taxes for everyone else. That is the result. The Liberal club gets a bonanza, and you get the bill. Meanwhile, he expects you and the media to run infomercials for him every time someone in his government sends a fax, holds a meeting, or fills out a form. Yesterday, hilariously, or perhaps depressingly, a Liberal minister held a press conference to announce that 3 projects that have been languishing for a decade will now be eligible for consultation on possibly being designated to have their permit application moved from one federal bureau to another federal bureau, after which there will be more consultation, more deliberation, and more study. There has never been, in the history of this country, a government that has had so much publicity for bureaucratic busy work. But bureaucratic busy work does not actually build an economy. What does is the federal government and its bureaucracy getting out of the way. Get out of the way and repeal the anti-development laws. Get out of the way and grant permits for construction to begin. Get out of the way and scrap the industrial carbon tax. Get out of the way and off the backs of builders, investors, and workers. He doesn't need to sign yet another meaningless memorandum that is unenforceable and entirely symbolic. It's actually incredible. After a year of traveling the world, which, by the way, I support Mr. Carney traveling. If he could come back with results for Canadians, I would think it would be terrific. How many new trade agreements has he negotiated? I mean real ones, not the fake, flimsy press releases he comes back. Actual free trade agreements has he negotiated? 0. 0. He signed one that Trudeau had negotiated, to Trudeau's credit, with Indonesia, which is worth $400 million, about 5 hours of trade with the U.S. But other than that, not one new trade agreement anywhere around the world. On crime, Mr. Carney has kept Liberal bail in place, and worse, he has introduced a get-out-of-jail-free card. His bill, C-16, allows judges to exempt the worst criminals from mandatory prison sentences and turn them loose on our streets. Lower sentences for rape, for robbery, for extortion, and other serious crimes. That means criminals who would previously have been stuck behind bars under conservative mandatory minimums will be turned free under Carney's law. The tough talk is all an illusion. The result is more crime on our streets. The illusion of Mr. Carney is about to collide with the reality. He's been wrong on every major issue. He was wrong on the carbon tax, wrong to write in his book that we should keep half our oil in the ground, wrong to testify against pipelines to the Pacific, wrong to predict COVID would lead to declining inflation, wrong to support money-printing deficits that led to the subsequent inflation. Conservatives have been right on all of these issues, and we're going to continue to fight for the Canadian people. We're going to fight for an affordable, safe, and strong country. This session of Parliament, we fought to expose the illusions and to get results for Canadians, and we did. We fought against the government's policy on medical assistance in dying for mental illness and forced a multi-partisan committee to recommend that that policy not go ahead and that we work to provide mental health to people to save their lives. We also passed Frank Laputo's bill, which will mean a serious crackdown on men who abuse women. We exposed the Prescribe IT scandal. We also pushed forward with a law by Andrew Lawton to eliminate the GST on all used cars, and to do so by eliminating the Alto rail disaster and using the savings to put it in the pockets of people who actually need to buy a vehicle. And a new bill from Shakao, our member of parliament from the Lower Mainland, which will stop drug kingpins in their tracks, put them in jail, and give them life sentences so that we can keep people safe. Mr. Au's bill is inspired by the tragedy of Emily Liu, a 14-year-old girl whose life was cut short by fentanyl. The bill targets the traffickers and makers of these deadly drugs, not Canadians struggling with addiction. The people who knowingly traffic these poisons should be locked up forever, because you deserve to know your children are safe. You deserve a government that is affordable, so we've pushed for cutbacks to bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid, corporate welfare, handouts to fake and phony refugees to bring down inflation, taxes, and debt. We want you to be able to afford your life, and we will fight every day in every way to make that happen. So keep the fight alive and keep the hope alive. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Merci. Désolé pour le retour audio de les premières minutes. We'll now go to the question period. We're quite many, so please keep your question as short as possible so we can ask as many questions as possible. And if you're attending in present, of course, please be mindful about the earpiece, not to put it too close to the microphone. It can create hurtful audio feedback. So we'll go to the one question, one follow-up basis. We'll start with Alex Balingual, Toronto Star.
Thank you very much. Carney was saying this morning that Trump called him yesterday and they had a constructive conversation about NATO and the war in the Middle East and the situation in the Middle East, but that Carney did not raise CUSMA with Trump. I wonder what you think of that and how you would have handled that conversation if you got the call from Trump to talk about NATO.
Well, first of all, I hope they had a good call. We need a good relationship between our two countries. I definitely would have raised CUSMA. We have workers in aluminum, steel, autos, lumber who are losing their jobs. Just in British Columbia, they've lost 30 mills in the last decade, and these mills are literally the anchor of entire towns. Similar story in rural Quebec. We need the Prime Minister to get a good deal and fast. He promised he'd have one a year ago, but since that time, he's made a phenomenal amount of concessions while getting nothing in return. You know, I just find it incredible that he's made about 6 major concessions: digital services tax, Netflix tax, removing counter tariffs, the defense spending, the list goes on and on. Many of those things needed to happen. But why not bring them to the negotiating table and get something in return? Instead, what he's got is double the tariffs on aluminum and steel and triple on lumber. What I would do is build up our leverage, and we have a lot, by committing to build a strategic reserve of the 10 most critical minerals, according to NATO, that you need to fight a war. Put those in a reserve. committed to increasing oil production by another 2 million barrels, and offer the Americans the prospect that those resources could be available for their purchase in a tailored way if we get tariff-free access to their markets. We need leverage, positive leverage. That's what President Trump has said. It's what he's written in his own book. We have that leverage through our resources, and we can massively enrich our people by using those resources and at the same time get the tariffs removed so our economy can grow. Thank you.
Just on another matter, on the independence vote in Alberta, the Prime Minister seemed to kind of up the ante this morning when he's talking about, this is a real vote. It's not the prelude to the actual vote. This is real. This could have dangerous consequences for the economy and for Canada's standing. I wonder what you think of that strategy as somebody who said that you're going to campaign for Canada in this. What do you think of that strategy of emphasizing the dangers of even holding this vote in the first place?
Well, I think what we need to do is provide Albertans with hope that life can get better. And that's why I went there and gave a very strong patriotic speech urging my fellow Albertans to embrace their friends across the country to achieve their objectives. We should lock arms with suburban Toronto communities that want tougher crime laws, lock arms with Newfoundland, which seeks to double its oil production, lock arms with the coastal First Nations that want LNG facilities that would export Alberta's natural gas, lock arms with Quebecers who want the federal government out of their business and who want provincial autonomy restored. I believe by building those alliances, we can fulfill the ambitions of Albertans and deal with their legitimate grievances. So I believe we need a Project Hope. The Project Hope is the right way to go. Some people say that hope is not a strategy. Well, fear is not a strategy either. We have to give people hope. And we also need to go and speak to our young people in both Quebec and Alberta and tell them that the promise that they were made when they were born in this country will be restored, that they can afford a home, they can start a life, they can build a future, found a family, launch a business successfully here in Canada. Thank you.
Miki Djukic, Politico.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Will you be attending any Pride parades this year?
I'm not planning to.
No, why not?
It's just not on my plan.
And then my follow-up question is, what do you think should happen to 24 Sussex?
I really don't think about it at all. I just think when I go around this country and I meet so many people who can't afford a place to live, when I see the homelessness on our streets and I see the young people who are desperate to start families but can't get a house to do it, I just think the last thing on our minds should be 24 Sussex Drive. C'est vraiment pas une priorité pour moi. Quand je rencontre des jeunes qui peuvent pas avoir accès à la propriété, je vois les sans-abri dans la rue, je vois les familles qui risquent de perdre leur maison à cause des paiements hypothécaires. Je pense pas que la maison pour n'importe quel premier ministre soit prioritaire.
Stephanie Taylor, National Post.
Hi, thanks for taking our questions. I guess just to clear on 24 Sussex, has the Prime Minister sought your input on what should happen to this building? I know you said you don't think about it at all, but has the Prime Minister sought your input and has shared any of what his plans are for it?
No, he's not.
And on separatism, do you support Alberta Premier Daniel Smith putting this independence question to a referendum?
Look, the thing is happening. We have to deal with it. At the end of the day, I wish it weren't happening, but it is, and I'm going to make the case for Canada. And I'll be spending time throughout the summer going to visit with people in communities big and small, north, south, east, and west in the province, to make the case for Canada and make sure Albertans know that they are heard and loved within our Confederation. And I hope that every Canadian will wrap their arms around Albertans to bring the country together.
Michel Sabat, Presse canadienne.
Bonjour, M. Poilievre. Vous allez avoir une impression de déjà-vu. Quelle est votre réaction au fait que M. Carney nous a dit que Durant ce qu'il a décrit comme une longue conversation avec M. Trump, la CUSMA n'a pas été abordée.
Je trouve ça incroyable. M. Carney a été élu sur une seule promesse principale. C'était qu'il allait conclure un deal avec les États-Unis, qu'il allait pouvoir, et je cite, gérer Trump, qu'il allait négocier une victoire avant le 21 juillet 2025. Un an plus tard, pas de résultat. Et où est l'urgence pour les travailleurs en foresterie au Québec, en aluminium au Saguenay, qui ont besoin de leur emploi? Je trouve ça incroyable que M. Carney n'aurait pas en parlé avec le président Trump. Il devrait, avec grande urgence, se battre pour une entente sans tarif dans chaque appel téléphonique. And if you don't mind, I'd like to repeat that in English, and then if you have a follow-up. I just find it incredible that Mark Carney his promise to negotiate a win with President Trump was not a promise. It was the liberal promise of the last election. And where are the results of that promise? He said he'd have a deal by July 21st of last year. We're almost July of this year, and tariffs have gone up. The aluminum, steel, auto, and lumber workers are desperate for their jobs and their paychecks. And Mr. Carney has a long telephone conversation with the president and doesn't even bring it up. What could be a greater priority to this country? It's time to start fighting for Canada and to start getting results.
Êtes-vous favorable à l'interdiction de la SKS, qui est une arme de style militaire, mais légale, qui aurait été utilisée par le tireur durant la fusillade survenue lundi à Montréal?
Tout d'abord, j'aimerais offrir mes condoléances aux familles des deux personnes qui sont mortes et de ceux et celles qui sont ma compassion aux gens qui sont blessés. Il faut commencer à poser la question après 11 ans d'un gouvernement libéral qui promet de bannir la propriété légitime des chasseurs, fermiers et tireurs sportifs. Est-ce que ça marche? On a vu une augmentation des fusillades, des crimes faits avec des armes de 50% depuis ce politique est mis en place. Donc, est-ce que ça marche? Est-ce que ça protège les gens? Est-ce que ça empêche des fusillades? Il faut se poser la question, c'est quoi le résultat? I think if I can repeat that in English. Look, first of all, I'd like to offer my condolences to the victims of the shooting. Our hearts go out to them. And to those who are injured, our prayers are for a swift and total recovery. We've now had, the question was about banning hunting rifle. We've now had 11 years where the Liberals said we would all be made safe if they banned hunting rifles. And I think now is the time to judge the result. Has it worked? Well, gun crime is up 50% since they promised they were going to ban these guns. We have to ask ourselves, have these bans on hunters and farmers and licensed sports shooters stopped mass shootings? These are the questions we have to ask.
Laura, The Logic.
Thanks for taking our questions. Laura Osmond with The Logic. The government has tabled plans for a massive new big tech regulator that's going to look at things like online harms and digital privacy. Lots of people have raised concerns about this regulator online. We still don't have a lot of details about it. I'm wondering, since the government has said they'd be open to working with the Conservatives to amend it, if there's something that you would change about it, what would you put forward, and how do you plan to handle this in the next sitting of Parliament?
On a déjà trop de bureaucratie à Ottawa. On a plein d'agences qui sont déjà responsables de faire toutes sortes de réglementations par rapport à la communication. Donc, on a maintenant 13 nouvelles agences de M. Carney dans un an. Il a créé probablement plus de bureaucratie, de nouvelles bureaucraties que n'importe quel autre premier ministre dans notre histoire. Est-ce qu'on a besoin de nouvelles bureaucraties ou est-ce qu'on a besoin d'appliquer les lois qui existent déjà, mais de les appliquer aux technologies modernes? Donc, je vous donne l'exemple. C'est déjà un crime de faire une menace en personne. Ça devrait simplement être un crime de faire une menace sur l'Internet. C'est un crime de déformer l'image de quelqu'un en essaimant un mensonge. Utiliser l'image de quelqu'un dans l'IA pour, en fait, créer une vidéo pornographie sans consentement du sujet devrait être un crime. Donc, moi, je crois qu'il faut appliquer les mêmes règles de la vie qui existent dans le monde tangible au monde technologique. Et nous avons déjà une agence policière, une agence d'intelligence, une agence de communication, le CRTC, qui sont là. Pourquoi une nouvelle agence? Ça semble que M. Carney veut encore concentrer le contrôle et censurer le discours politique pour son avantage et son pouvoir personnel. Moi, je veux protéger notre population contre les abus et non pas protéger les politiciens contre la parole libre. I think, did you ask that in English or French? Sorry, it all becomes like a weird jumble in my head. Sorry about that. So would you like an English answer? You're like,
What I may ask you as a follow-up in English is, you know, we don't have any laws targeting the companies.
Why don't you have any coffee in here?
Duly noted.
Conditions have really fallen apart. Sorry.
Good. We don't have any laws right now targeting the companies and the platforms themselves when it comes to the issues that you just raised that are sort of targeting the users. I'm wondering what you make of the government's approach here to targeting the companies themselves with, you know, the kind of regulatory bodies that we see in the EU and the UK.
My view is that the tech companies should be subject to the same rules as everyone else. You know, for example, it is illegal for someone working at Canada Post to willingly participate in a money laundering operation. The same would be true for a tech platform. It would be expected that a corporation would not allow its services to be used to facilitate crime and that it would be considered negligence if they did. The same should be true of a tech platform. And so what we need to do is take the existing laws and standards that we apply to everyone else and modernize them to apply to tech companies. That does not require a gigantic, new, towering government bureaucracy. My concern is that what Mr. Carney and the Liberals are once again doing is trying to create a censorship and surveillance apparatus. And this is, I'm not the only one who said this, it's already widely viewed. You take the combination of their original C11, which is allows them, the CRTC, to manipulate algorithms online to favor content the government considers to be appropriate. You consider they have a heritage minister that wants to ban Bible verses that he considers to be politically incorrect. And you have parts of C22 that would require large tech companies to ultimately become surveillance arms for the state. I think if you put all those things together, you get a troubling view about the government's desire to control, to have more control, and for the people to have less independence. We all believe in tougher laws and better tools for law enforcement to protect our kids, to protect our seniors, and to protect Canadians. And we believe that we can do that while protecting our liberty at the same time. Thank you.
We'll go to Marco, iPolitics.
Hey, thanks for taking our questions. Back to the BC condos. Some folks have attributed this glut of unsold units to the federal government's ban on foreign home buyers, which is set to expire in the coming months. They say lifting this ban could also act as a bailout to those developers who were building units not for Canadian residents, but instead for foreign buyers. Do you agree with that? Is this something that you would support keeping in place, or do you support lifting the ban?
I don't support changing the rules to sell off the condos to foreign buyers. They're Canadian condos. They should be by Canadians, Canadian buyers who want to live in them, preferably. And no, I don't think the objective here is not to bail out the developers. It's to give people a place to live. So any policy that's seeking to bail out bankers or developers is the wrong one. The policy should be, it's very simple. There's a guy yesterday online, he was saying, he did a little skit, and he was at a shirt store, and he said, pretended to be the salesman who wasn't selling any shirts, and his solution was let the shirt prices drop. And lo and behold, the shirts started to sell. You know, Mr. Carney says he wants an innovative financial solution to make expensive empty condos into affordable occupied ones. I have that innovative solution. Let the prices drop.
Thank you. And moving back to Alberta, considering we're months away from that province's referendum, have you had any conversations, or would you be open to potentially doing a joint event with Mr. Carney or any other federal leaders to kind of rally support for the no side?
The Prime Minister and I did several months ago in one of our meetings. We did discuss the issue of the then potential referendum. We didn't discuss joint strategies or joint events or anything of that nature. I haven't really thought about that, but I'll be traveling around the province this summer, and actually I'm really looking forward to it. I love rural Alberta. It's just a fun place to be. And I think it's an opportunity to kind of reinstill people's sense of hope about how good life can be for Albertans within a united Canada.
Yasmine Mehdi, Radio-Canada.
Toujours sur le même thème de l'unité nationale, ce matin, le premier ministre disait que selon lui, il fallait adopter la même stratégie pour le Québec et pour l'Alberta, du fédéralisme coopératif. Est-ce que vous pensez qu'il faut adopter la même stratégie pour les deux provinces?
Oui, absolument. Je suis d'accord avec ça. Les Canadiens sont tannés d'avoir deux paroles différentes dans les deux langues officielles. Donc, moi, je dis exactement les mêmes choses en français qu'en anglais. Je pense que quand je parle aux jeunes Québécois, leurs demandes ne sont pas aussi différentes que les jeunes Albertains. J'étais en Beauce il y a quelques jours, il y a quelques jours, et je me suis dit, après, je me sens en Alberta, parce que les gens parlaient de l'abordabilité, leur chèque de paie, le pouvoir de lancer une entreprise, l'économie en général. Les chasseurs dans les communautés rurales du Québec voulaient évidemment garder leur arme de chasse. Donc, les valeurs ne sont pas aussi différentes qu'on le pense. Et donc, moi, je pense que les solutions pour les divisions qui existent au Québec et en Alberta sont assez semblables. Donner plus d'autonomie aux provinces et aux individus, donner l'opportunité aux jeunes d'avoir accès à la propriété, libérer notre économie, avoir un gouvernement fédéral plus petit pour des provinces et des individus plus grands.
Puis, le premier ministre s'est doté d'un conseiller spécial pour l'Alberta. Il a quand même passé pas mal de temps en Alberta, le protocole d'entente, etc. Est-ce que vous pensez qu'il est aussi préoccupé par le référendum en Alberta que par la possibilité d'un référendum au Québec?
Je sais pas. J'attends à ce qu'il s'adresse aux Albertains. Je me suis adressé aux Albertains il y a 2-3 semaines pour présenter mes arguments d'unité nationale, et je suggère que le premier ministre devrait bientôt faire exactement la même chose.
Mais est-ce que ça vous inquiète, la possibilité d'un gouvernement péquiste au Québec?
Je préfère des gouvernements qui évidemment croient au Canada, mais c'est pas moi de dicter aux Québécois comment voter.
Stuart Benson, Hill Times.
Hi, Poilievre. Thanks for coming to the theater. I just have a quick question about the national food security strategy. I spoke with the Daily Bread CEO. They have some positive thoughts, but they don't think it's going to actually secure food affordability for Canadians. So I just want to get your general thoughts on what the strategy will do, what you don't think it will do, and do you support their suggestions that a rent should be partially or entirely tax deductible and increases to the disability benefit? So,
thank you for that. You raised a number of important subjects in that question. First of all, I think we just have to start asking, why is it that Canada has the worst food price inflation in the G7? The numbers just came out the other day, higher than anywhere else. It's comforting to say it has something to do with Iran, but if that were the case, then we would see the same food inflation in the other G7 countries, but we don't. The reality is that high Liberal taxes right through the food chain are driving up the cost of food. The industrial carbon tax on farm equipment, fertilizer, food processors, the food packaging tax, the continued interprovincial trade barriers that the Liberal government have not gotten rid of despite Carney's promises, and most of all, this is the untold story, but today it's a big one, the weak loonie, the weak dollar. Food prices, fertilizer prices, and fuel prices are all internationally determined. And when your dollar is weak, everything costs more. And we have a very weak dollar, which is actually shocking because we have such high commodity prices. You'd think the Canadian dollar would be stronger than ever. But this is the consequence of Liberal policies that have weakened our economy, made us the only recession in the G7. That's why we have a weak dollar, and one of the reasons why Mark Carney and the Liberals have given us the most expensive food inflation in the G7. As for some of the other issues you mentioned, I think that we need to work with the provinces to address these clawbacks that punish workers with disabilities. There are literally hundreds of thousands of people with severe disabilities and probably over 1 million with a disability of some kind that work. But the problem is they get clawed back. They get robbed of their housing, medicine, transportation, and income supports with marginal effective tax rates that often make them worse off because they earned an extra dollar. And it's a multi-government issue. It's not partisan. It's not even just a federal issue. Some of the programs are provincial, and some of them are federal. We have some federal tax credits with clawbacks. We have the CPP disability program, which has very sharp clawbacks, and then the provinces have their own clawbacks. I think we need to bring the two levels of government together and come up with a plan to calculate, to rejig these programs so that when somebody who has a disability goes and gets a job and earns an extra dollar, that they're not punished for it. They should be graduated off as they do better and better until maybe one day they make a tremendous amount of money and they don't need to rely on the assistance anymore. But we need to make work pay for people with disabilities.
Follow up?
I know you said you don't think about Sussex too much, but you are Prime Minister in waiting. Is this not, at the very least, embarrassing for Canada that we don't have a working proper residence that our leader of our country can host other world leaders at? I mean, it's not a ballroom, it's just getting the rats and the asbestos out. Is that not an important project for this country?
Well, it took how long did it take to get the asbestos out of West Block? It's incredible. I think, you look at the House of Commons, the main center block, I think back right after the First World War when it burned down, I think they built the whole thing back up in something like 6 years, and now it takes 14 years for us to renovate the thing. I think we start to ask questions about what's holding us up. We have better technology than we did 100 years ago, yet our ancestors were able to build much quicker than we are today. And I think it's just an example, again, of more and more bureaucracy devouring our economy and, in some cases, our national symbols.
I've been told we have time for one more question. So, Carl de Narwhal, you want to go ahead?
Thanks for taking our questions. So, with regard to the Alberta MOU, you said the carbon capture aspect is a money-losing project that's never been proven anywhere. The idea of carbon capture is something that you've supported in the past. You previously said your party would incentivize the energy sector to invest in carbon capture. You've actually criticized the Liberals for not doing so. So what's changed? Why have you soured on carbon capture?
Well, there are two types. One is money making, one is money losing. The money making is enhanced oil recovery. When you pump carbon back in the ground to pressurize the geology, and you can bring up more oil that can then go out and make the world a better place. The other is just pumping air into the ground and getting nothing in return. And that's what Mr. Carney's pushing. Now, you said you say it will lose money. Well, tell me how it's going to make money. How is it going to make money? You're going to pump air into the ground. Like, nobody can use it for anything. It's just air being pumped into the ground. How many billions of dollars are we going to spend pumping air into the ground? You know, I think in 100 years, people will look back at us and say, really? They spent billions of dollars to pump air into the ground? I just find it wild. We should, and frankly, I think what we need to do is just get the government off the backs of our sector and let the sector produce more affordable energy that will fight poverty and make the world a better place.
Thanks. On another topic, the government proposed to create federal economic zones where certain developments would be pre-approved. Overhauling the environmental assessment regime, you've called for the whole thing to be repealed. What do you think of federal economic zones and the proposal?
Well, first of all, I think all of Canada should be an economic zone. We should have fast permits everywhere in the country. I would go beyond, because there's so much right now, there's so much fear of investing in Canada. So many businesses, Enbridge with Northern Gateway, TransCanada with the Energy East Pipeline, Teck Resources with the Teck Frontier Mine in Northern Alberta, $20 billion project. They've all spent billions of dollars on processes that went nowhere. So a lot of businesses and investors around the world say they don't want to take the risk spending on lawyers, lobbyists, consultants, and 7 years to get to nowhere. So one idea that I have put forward is the shovel-ready zone, which is to say we look at places where a certain kind of economic infrastructure makes sense. We do the study, the Indigenous consultation, and then we grant what I call a pre-permit. It would be a legally binding permit with clearly defined conditions online. And it would say anybody who comes along can develop that infrastructure in that zone. You have a permit that is legally binding on the government. And that way you can approve it before you even have a proponent. And if it's not economical, then a proponent doesn't come along, you're no further behind. But if it is economical, then they can just get to work. And they know that they have effectively a contract with the Government of Canada to provide all the permits necessary. So that's how I would go about it.
Before you go, give a thought on Venezuela.
Yes, Anna and I have been talking about that today. Obviously, our thoughts are with the Venezuelan people as they deal with this terrible natural disaster. And I know that Canadians will be there to support Venezuelans, and family members will be thinking of their loved ones in that country. And so our thoughts and prayers are with them, and we hope the Prime Minister, we was happy the Prime Minister raised it today. I thank him for that, and we hope that we can minimize the losses and give the Venezuelan people relief in this terrible time.
Merci.
I don't think that is the solution right now. Frankly, I think we've got. I think we should. I'm not saying like we have to see what's going to happen with the new regime. We don't know. Is there going to be an election? We think there should be democratic elections, and the Venezuelan government should be turned to the Venezuelan people, who I hope will choose a true Democrat that will restore freedom to that country.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Sur l'ambassade, il faut regarder ce qui va se passer. On veut qu'il y ait une démocratie, une vraie démocratie au Venezuela, et que le gouvernement soit dans les mains du peuple vénézuélien. On ne veut pas donner un support diplomatique, économique ou autrement à un gouvernement communiste et totalitaire. Donc, on est pour des élections aussi rapidement que possible pour que les Vénézuéliens puissent reprendre le contrôle de leur pays. And I don't support opening an embassy in Iran or allowing the Iranians to open an embassy in Canada. This is a terrorist regime that has killed our people, and they have never, ever been held accountable for the murder of 55 Canadian citizens and 30 permanent residents. And they are continually operating on our soil illegally. So I do not support reestablishing diplomatic ties with Iran or allowing its thug terrorist members to be in our country diplomatically.
C'est dit. Merci beaucoup pour cette conférence de presse, Dispute and Press Conference. Merci beaucoup d'avoir utilisé le Théâtre national de la presse. C'était un plaisir de vous avoir reçu, monsieur. Merci.